So joining us right now, a Baltimore legend in broadcasting, Mr. Keith Mills. What's up, buddy?
Oh, man. Legend. You speaking of legends.
Yeah,
you guys
right.
are legends.
Yeah.
I've always ridden your coattails, brother.
Yeah, whatever. Speaking of coattails, soccer in Baltimore has an amazing history. It really does. And it's got what I like to call an amazing family.
Ooh.
And you've been covering local sports, Keith, for many years. And I know you were very involved with basketball, and you know all the soccer guys. Is the basketball family and the soccer family similar in that?
Very similar, and we have this mindset in Baltimore that it's the lacrosse capital of the world.
Right.
But the lacrosse community is very splintered.
Yes,
because everybody's an All-American in lacrosse.
Right.
And everybody's son, daughter.
Well, that's why it's a dumb sport.
And
I hate it.
And there's a clash of the titans, so to speak. But what I found is that soccer, the East Side soccer fraternity community bond is second to none.
Right.
Basketball in the inner city is close.
Right.
But my journey has taught me that nothing in Baltimore compares to the soccer bond that not just the men now or the guys, the women have kind of taken the baton as well. But man, that East Side. Pride, so to speak, Patterson Park to Herring Run over to the Dundalk, Patapsco area, man, is unbelievable.
So when you were at Channel 2, when someone, what did they say when you said, I want to cover high school? Because high school was not covered. And high school sports, it's funny because when you talk to him and you mention, he knows where he went to high school, what his grade point average, all that stuff. So when you approached Channel 2 and said, I want to start covering high school, did they think you were crazy?
It was actually the other way around.
Really?
Arnie Kleiner was the general manager. I was a sports producer at Channel 13. My father worked over there as Mickey Nose for 40 years. And he was ingrained in the community. But Scott Garceau had just been elevated from the weekend sports anchor job to Monday through Friday because John Saunders left to go to ESPN.
Right.
So he took John's job.
This is 1945.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is I'm old, brother, but I'm not sure if I'm that old. Sometimes I feel that old.
Right.
So in 87, I got a call from Scott saying, hey, we're making a few changes. Are you interested in coming over? So absolutely. And one of the first things he said to me was, keep doing the high school stuff. We want you to do the high school stuff. And there was never any ego with Scott. It was just like Vince Bagley.
Yeah.
What can I do to help make your job better? And he gave the blessing to myself, Mike Gaffigan, Lamont Williams, all the guys that actually produced it and shot it. Go out and live in the community and cover it. And a big part of it was the soccer guys. No question about it.
And it's interesting. And the reason I asked you that originally is because I'm 50 years old now, and I've been playing soccer for 45 years. And guys I knew when I was 5, 6 years old, you run into them. It's not about, inevitably, it's never about, you were telling stories about the neighborhood. We might get into that, but it's always soccer. Somehow it always comes back to soccer. And no matter where you are, they'd say the Kevin Bacon, whatever, that separation.
That's 6 degrees.
You literally have 2 in Baltimore.
2 degrees.
One guy, he knew the guy you're talking about.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
They played with him or saw him play. And it goes back, and I think the original, in my eyes, the original legend, so to speak, really is Sonny Askew, was the guy that went to the world level, played in Tampa Bay with guys like George Best. He played in the league with Canalia and Pele. And he's still regarded as maybe the greatest player in the history of Baltimore. And you run into that guy, it's like he's at Patterson High School.
You immediately go back to Patterson High School.
Exactly.
We played for Harley Russ, and they would play curling.
Well,
I'll tell you what. Well, yeah, you know that whole rivalry. I used to work the News American before I got into TV, and this was in the late 70s. Actually 1975.
That's not the late 70s.
That's the mid 70s.
Wait, just for the record, I was 1 in 1975.
I was 6. 7. I was 7.
So John Stedman says, hey, why don't you go over cover the University of Baltimore UB Loyola soccer game at Loyola? And I had never been to a college soccer game.
Right.
And
75, that's a great year for Loyola.
That was UB won the Division II national championship, and they had to beat Loyola to get to the Final Four.
Right.
And then the next year, Loyola won it.
Right, exactly.
And I go over to Loyola College, and it's the old field right on campus. And I'd never seen anything like it.
It was
It
unbelievable.
was 3,000 people. They were standing around a fence
for soccer.
For
soccer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dick Adele, who went on to become
sure.
a Hall of Fame lacrosse coach at Maryland and Army, was the coach of the UB team.
Yeah.
And Jim Bullington was the coach of Loyola. And I didn't know anything about anything other than what I read about the old Baltimore Major League.
Yeah.
In the Sun or the News American that they played at Dnipro and St. Anthony's and
Yeah.
St. Ursula's and all this stuff. And I'm
Right.
like, I am stunned. So
Yeah.
I introduced myself to Coach Adele and Coach Bullington, and Coach Bullington basically took me by the hand and goes, "You want to stand over here next to our bench. You don't want to be in the in the crowd today." I said, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, you'll see why."
Yeah.
I mean, from the minute the game started, the fans were screaming each other.
Yeah.
From side to side.
Yeah. It was incredible.
Pete Caringi was in the game.
Yeah.
Nick Mangione was in the game.
Was Mario Shilapoti on that team?
Mario was on Loyola.
It's incredible.
No, Mario was a freshman.
Yeah.
John Hauska. Oh man, it was a Hall of Fame.
Steve
Charlie
Syracuse.
Myers.
Was Steve Syracuse in there yet?
I don't know if Syracuse was. Tommy Wall was on the team.
Tommy Wall, what a great
it was
player.
A who's who, as I found out later.
Yeah.
And I ended up interviewing Pete after the game because they won.
Yeah.
It was, a bloodbath, man. It was like,
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like it. There were nearly like 30 fights.
Yeah.
But after the game, they're all hugging.
They're best friends. They're all going back to Patterson Park and drinking around a trash can on fire.
I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
So that was my initial.
So as a guy that can,
Doctrine.
for those that don't know, you were a really, really great athlete. You played Division I
okay.
baseball. Don't act like you weren't. So you know what it takes to compete at a high level. And I know Baltimore's had some great baseball guys.
Yeah.
But the amount of great soccer players, it doesn't even seem like.
Unbelievable.
And I think it's because America had yet to really embrace the sport like it does now.
Oh, absolutely.
If those guys would have had the MLS, they had the NASL, but it was a way different thing, and they were trying to bring foreign players in to make Americans like the game. Sonny made it. There was, I think, one or two other guys went up. But, locally, every one of those guys were just world-class.
Big-time players.
Incredible.
Big time.
And here we flash to 2019. Soccer's bigger than it's ever been. More kids are playing it than any other sport. And the soccer community now, it's neat. Grandfathers are now rooting their kids on, and their grandfathers are legends.
Yep.
It's such a neat thing. And I want to go back to right after when you were talking about early 80s. Baltimore knows it's a soccer town.
Yes, indeed.
And it's a weird soccer town, too, meaning that we always knew we loved soccer.
Right.
So when they said they're going to have this game called indoor
soccer, man.
No one.
Well, you guys were playing it as kids indoor, right?
Yeah, I did.
Indoor Kicks was on Pulaski Highway.
Yeah.
And then there used to be a place on Boston Street.
That's where the Blast practiced.
Where you walked
no
in,
heat.
no
heat.
heat. You walked
Blast
in through a curtain, and the carpet was like your grandmother's carpet.
It was carpet.
And it was
wasn't
carpet
turf.
carpet. It was carpet.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it was cold.
And yeah, we played
Right
in
by
there.
Bohager's.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But, the interesting thing, Keith, when Baltimore said they were getting an indoor soccer team, and I'm sure you're in the media at that time.
I was a Channel 13 sports producer. It was huge.
And you got to think, though, how are they going to play soccer indoor?
Yeah.
Were you shocked that the town caught on so fast, though, and
Yes.
supported it?
Shocked at because it was novel.
Yeah.
And Nicky Mangione was the only local player.
Exactly.
That
made it up.
Kenny
Because
Cooper
Timmy
brought.
Whitman didn't come until, I think,
To the second year.
Second year.
Right.
Yeah.
But and I know it chapped the
Soccer
community really kind of.
They had 10 guys that could have been
no question.
Easy.
All the guys on that field that
Yeah.
day for UB and Loyola could have played.
Hands
Nicky was
down.
the only one.
Yeah.
And I knew Pete could have. You kidding
Yeah.
me?
Well, I think some of that had to do with the fact that, Kenny Cooper was from Manchester, England.
Yeah.
He knew nothing about our local scene. Learned to learn.
Yes, he
and,
did.
and if you look back on the Blast now, we've had a ton.
Oh.
A ton.
Pipeline.
And
Yeah.
here's where I think the
a great
Blast
point.
really took
Yeah.
off is when the Colts left.
Yeah.
Because it was just the Orioles, and the Orioles had won the series in '83.
Yeah.
Kind of went down a little bit, and the Blast were really picking up.
Right there.
82, 83, they made the championships. They lost to San Diego. The next year they played St. Louis. You can't get a seat in the house.
Yeah.
And we beat St. Louis 4-1. Colts are gone. This was like our city because we played 50, 60 games.
Yeah, there were a lot of
There was a
games.
lot
Yeah.
of games. Channel
Yeah.
13 broadcasted
Yep.
home and away.
Yep.
Because you could not get a seat in there. And then when you got a seat, it was an absolutely big deal. the show in the beginning when you had explosions, everything that was
the ball.
Oh, the ball was the
the
best.
ball is still talked about.
Cool in the Gang is still relevant
Still
in
is.
this city.
We play it
because
all
of
the time.
celebration.
No doubt.
One
Well,
of the greatest moments in sports.
I was producing the games that time, and
Al Troutwig was the
Al
play-by-play.
Troutwig did the games, and it was big time, man.
Yeah.
I mean, they spent a lot of money on remote trucks and everything, but the crowd, you mentioned the crowd, they were selling out.
It was unbelievable.
Half of them were women.
Yeah, it was
Right,
crazy.
right.
Big date night.
Yep.
You know, the bars around at that time, Schaefer's and PJ Crickets, and they were
Just
killing
got
it.
mobbed.
It was
Yeah.
an event, man,
And here we 2019 now. We're getting ready to enter the 2019-2020 season.
39th year
How about that,
as a Baltimore franchise.
It's
39.
unbelievable.
We've had a blast. We've had the Spirit. We had the blast again, but 39 years now.
And if you added both teams together, or three, however you want to look at it,
Right.
it's the most winningest professional franchise
Absolutely.
in
Yeah.
Baltimore sports history.
Yep.
Keith, when you look back at we can talk about the basketball legends, baseball legends, soccer legends. Don't you find it amazing, though, that, and you touched on this earlier, it's the part I find to be the most thrilling part of it. It's sort of like the way I view stand-up comedy. If you're a real comedian, it doesn't matter how successful you are.
Yeah.
You're a comic.
Yeah.
And there's a brotherhood.
Oh, no
And I
question.
feel like the soccer community, I've seen the best guys in the world. If they're standing around at somebody's game, I'm talking about world-class guys will walk up to a kid and go, look, hey, remember that when you had the ball here? Yeah. You should do. And you're looking at a guy, and the kid doesn't realize he's being told by Pete Caringi, maybe the greatest soccer coach in the country.
Absolutely.
What the kid should be doing. And the kid's just like, okay. And then 2 minutes later, you're like, you know who just showed you that, right? And you tell the stories, and these kids are fascinated.
Well, you and I were at one of the most unbelievably spontaneous, great local events in the history of Baltimore sports when Pep Perella passed away. And they had the celebration for him over at Curly, and a hair stand up my arms. I mean, everybody who was everybody in the soccer community and beyond showed up that day.
From
you didn't have
rival
to be
teams,
Calvert Hall, Poly,
Loyola, McDonough. It was amazing.
Mick, you and I were.
Yeah.
I remember we talked on it the next day, 2 days later at 98 Rock,
yeah.
and it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
The camaraderie and the love that everybody had for each other, even though they beat their brains out against each other when they played either at Patterson Park or
and the characters,
or whatever.
The characters in the soccer community.
Sonny was there that day.
Yes, Sonny was there.
You know?
I mean, everybody.
Well, one of my first high school games I ever covered for the news was Curly and Patterson at Patterson Sonny's senior year, and I had heard of him, but I never got a chance to see him. Harley Russ was coaching Patterson, and I don't know if it was Tom Giordano coaching.
I think
Curly
it was
at that
Giordano
time,
at that time.
mid-'70s.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, man, it was like 2,000 people
Yeah, you
there.
thought you were going to a World Cup game and
right.
you never knew anything else about soccer. Yeah,
It's unbelievable.
That's how every Curly Calvert Hall game,
Yeah.
4 or 5 rows deep, all the way around the field. You could not get close.
Yeah.
You were talking
to
about the
field.
Reef Cup. You went to it the
I
other
went
day.
to it last week.
I mean, think about that.
It's incredible.
Charlie Reef, it's named after, right?
Bernie
Bernie
Reef. Yeah,
Chris's dad.
Chris's dad.
And Chris played there, and everybody's father, and
Well,
everybody's
I think-
grandfather,
so
father,
I think
and son
Bernie
played
went there to Curly, and Chris went to Calvert Hall.
Yeah, Chris went to Calvert Hall.
and that's why they call it the Reef
Right.
Cup back and forth.
Think about that.
Yeah, and it's amazing. And I can remember Mr. Reef because Chris was such a great player, and he's like 2 years older than me, maybe 3. You knew Chris was so special by the 10th grade.
Yeah.
I mean, he's one of the greatest soccer players in the history of this town. And I just saw him Friday. He's the exact same
no
guy.
kidding.
We're still telling the same stories, and it's a special thing.
Absolutely.
My son, Keith, he's 12, he's going to be 13.
Jeez.
He embraced the game finally 2 years ago, and he's killing it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
Is he on the field or is he playing goalie?
No, he's
On the field?
a striker, man.
Oh, he wants the ball.
He's a real deal. I'm so proud of him.
He understands the relevance of scoring.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Hey, Dad.
Yeah.
I can be in the back and not get any glory.
Right. Yeah. He told me one time the goal to me is like the microphone to you. And I said, this kid's got it down.
That's awesome.
I've never met a microphone I didn't want. He's never met a goal he didn't want to shove a ball through. But the love of the game I see in him and his friends is the exact same passion and desire. I guess most kids with any sport, when they really love their sport, baseball, my boys play baseball, and their teammates, you see kids, and you just know. But I think one of the special things about the soccer community, for me anyway, if my son, if Carlin said to any of these guys, and they didn't even know who he was, if it was Goose Natton's, one of the great characters ever, Jeff's the best. All the way to guys like Coringi and the older guys. If this little kid started talking about soccer, these grown men would light up. And they share that. And that's what's been going on for 40, 50 years in this town. And you've seen it firsthand from all of them. Santino Carranza, another great,
oh my gosh,
family's legendary in this town for good and bad.
They were always good to me, so that's all I can.
Same with me.
Tommy was like,
but there's some classic stories with that family, and they're awesome people. But Santino, Giuliano, Salenza. I mean, I'm drawing blanks because there's so many great ones.
On the Blast alone during that run.
PJ Wakefield, Mike Lookingland.
Billy Nelson.
Billy Nelson, one of my favorites.
The UMBC became a pipeline to the Blast.
It was a shoehorn. You just start up here and slide right in.
When Ed bought the team,
no
disrespect to Bernie Roden or Nathan Shearer before, but when Ed bought it, he understood that the fabric of Baltimore soccer was Baltimore soccer. And he was going to, and him and Kevin Healy were going to make sure that the local kids got a chance to play professionally here.
And it's
they were good to their word.
Not only that, though, the quality of the game in some ways got better because it got more competitive. It was like more real playing for your hometown. Now, don't get me wrong. When they first started, and you had guys like Mike Stankovic and Peter Barelich and Mike Stamankovic. I mean, Mike Stamankovic played for Belgrade Red Star. I mean, I don't know how your history there, but that basically was run by the Russian mob. I mean, you know what I mean?
Mike always had a little edge to him.
Yeah,
did he ever?
And I think he was always looking over his shoulder, But you got to see, guys that didn't play for the Blast but played against them. Steve Zungel, one of the greatest soccer players ever. And
he was the
Branko Segota,
but Julie V. Zungel was called the Lord of All Indoors.
Right.
And I can remember in the '83 championship, Joey Fink scored 3 goals in 33 seconds.
I remember that.
And Al Troutwig said he was at Nassau Coliseum 2 years earlier in the final, and Zungel did the exact same thing, but they had a goalie in the goal. Joey put him in an empty net. Zungel scored 3 goals in 30-some seconds with a goalie in the goal. And back then, the goals were really small.
Yeah.
They were probably the smallest that you could.
Oh, yeah.
They were like the goalkeeper's head was almost at the crossbar.
Wow. I think they were that 6 by 7, 6 high or 7 wide. It was really tight.
So when you first came to a Blast game and you saw the Stamankovic and the Stankovic and the level of play, the Paul Kitsons, Van Aaron, what went through your mind? Because obviously it's a new sport. But when these guys come in, like Stamankovic could touch the ball and do absolutely
he would back him and post up.
Yeah.
And they'd feed him.
And he'd roll that thing.
And he'd turn.
And he weighed 440
He looked
pounds.
he
could run past midfield.
Yeah.
But, he could score.
He's the only guy I know, they'd pay him in fried chicken halftime.
He would eat. I think he had like a pizza deal at one point. He was because he was a big
and the pizza company lost money.
Because there was no Domino's at that time either. I don't even know what
That's
pizza.
Right.
Well, I don't know, but I marveled at the skill level of any soccer player because I couldn't do it. But they seem to bring a level of skill and passion that I thought connected with the people of Baltimore.
Well, you're right, Keith, and I'll tell you why.
Really
because another big part of that was when we were kids and the generation before me who really started this town soccer love. There was no television.
Yep, exactly.
We didn't see soccer. The only soccer we saw was our own. But it came from European families. Italians, Irish, Germans. When you go back and you listen to some of these names, it sounds like you're reciting a World Cup All-Star team. And it was very ethnic, East Baltimore, as we all know. And the Italians, the Greeks, all these guys, they knew the game from their forefathers or grandparents. They were taught it, but it wasn't anywhere around except Patterson and Herring Run Park.
Exactly.
And that's where it all birthed.
Exactly. And there were no club teams back then.
No.
There were
it was church teams and rec teams. That's it.
Yeah.
And in a way, that I think the club, I'm not saying the club explosion has hurt the game.
It has, and I'll tell you how.
I think it has.
But that neighborhood-esque kind of
Keith, you hit the nail on the head.
kind of situation was beneficial to the kids that played it.
I'll tell you something right now. So when I was going to play soccer, I lived within 3 blocks of every guy on my team.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
the guys on my team, we go to practice Tuesday. It didn't mean anything because we were playing Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday anyway at the park.
Right.
It's just one time a coach showed up
Right.
and blew a whistle at us. Other than that, it was the
But
same
that's how you
every
got
night.
tough playing pickup.
That's how you got tough.
Got knocked down, got up, right?
That's how you learned the game.
Yeah.
One guy learned how to do a trick, and you're like, oh, I got to learn how to do that.
Right,
you know,
right.
And you know, and I certainly was not at the level of the guys in this town that have become amazing. But I was a good player, and I loved the game. I still do. But when you talk about the clubs now, these kids see these elite players. So I can't say the passion's not the same because to them, playing for Pipeline or Celtic or any of these clubs, to them it's like playing for Real Madrid or Manchester United. It's like an elite way for them to relate.
But I think that the toughness has been taken out of that.
100%. I watched the Curly Calvert Hall game and realized I could not have played on that field, even when I was at my best, because I wasn't fast enough. But I would have beat the crap out of half the kids on that team. It's a different game now.
So
the mental toughness and the physical aspect of the game have changed.
I grew up in Overley.
No doubt.
So when I played for Overley, we didn't like Rosedale. We didn't like Perry Hall.
We didn't like anybody but Overley.
And those were big rivals, you know.
Sure,
But
absolutely.
now, and you knew the same guys were coming back. I grew up with J.J. Kramer. He was on my team.
What a great player.
We had the same guys coming to play every single weekend on a Sunday. Back when, and the Sun used to put the scores to the Beltway League in the paper. But now
freshman year at Curly, one of my highlights was our first game was against Calvert Hall. This is my first year at JV. And we tied them 0-0. And all the little blurb about it was Curly's goalie, they spelled my name all jacked up. Curly's goalie made a great save late. And I think I might still have it.
You got to still have that.
Somewhere, That was like.
Well, Steve Nichols told me one day, he's now coaching at Loyola, was at McDonald, played for the Blast.
He coached the U21 national team or whatever it was.
And he said, this whole academy rule now where you can't play high school ball in an academy. He goes, it's really hurting. He goes, I wanted my guys to play against Curly and Calvert Hall and St. Joe.
Of course you do.
Because that was the only time those kids played where they knew they were going to be in a physical, it's the end of the world kind of a game.
We cannot lose.
Absolutely.
All those teams are ranked in the top 10 every single year. And then when you see the public schools wanted to, they want to scrimmage out of league against the Curlys and Calvert Halls.
Absolutely.
And it's funny because a lot of the schools, especially in football, they get scared to play a public school because what if they do lose?
Yeah.
It's a
God forbid if you lose a game. My God, my reputation is going to
absolutely.
So my team I'm coaching, my son's playing for in Bel Air. We're 5-1 right now.
How many red cards do you have?
I don't have any.
All right.
I'm a gentleman.
That's 5-1. If he's 1-5, he's coaching it.
If I'd have one, if I'd be out of off the team by now. One of the things I find to be amazing, though, and I'm not talking badly about my team, but it's the culture in general.
Yeah.
They can't lose. They don't know how to lose.
Yeah.
When the whistle blew at the end of the game, and it was a really great game, we lost, and we got outplayed. And the kids, it was like Jesus walked up. Like they didn't know what they were looking at, and I'm like, guys, what's wrong? What does this mean? It means the team beat you, And I think that's where what you're talking about with this club stuff. Every kid's a winner, and
fear of failure is more galvanizing to kids today than the desire to win.
I told my son, I'm your father. You already failed. You got no chance, son.
Well, I mean, here's another thing with the club is that you have these kids that are guest players. They come in, they're not neighborhood guys. They live far away.
Yeah,
they come in, and then you have, I coached Overly travel when my son who's now 18. And I remember our first U8 tournament, we lost 2 games, we tied 1, and they said, so do we get a trophy?
I know.
And I'm like, no, you have to win the tournament.
And they didn't buy a French fry. You don't even deserve it.
They did not understand that this is the real world. Travel. And club was just starting to kick in. It wasn't big.
Yeah.
Like the Bays were there, obviously.
Yeah.
But they didn't get that, okay, we don't get you have to win to get a trophy.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing.
that?
The winning culture is a poison as far as everyone's a winner.
Question.
And I hate it, and I'll fight it till the day I die. But I want to revert back because
Yeah.
when you in the early '80s, when the Blast really got going,
Yeah.
there were guys like yourself who were totally ingrained in the communities and the high school vibes, and I know that football and baseball and wrestling and all those other sports had great.
Yeah.
How much did you ever witness these soccer thing and think to yourself, I wish I would have
Oh,
played
no
this.
question.
I wanted to ask you that.
Absolutely. The late 70s to me, man, was just unbelievable.
It was the glory
soccer.
days of soccer, yeah.
You know, Timmy Whitman was coming out of Calvert
Yeah.
Hall, but, Lock Raven, Bill Cento was coaching
Yeah.
Lock Raven, and he went on to coach at Loyola College after Jim Bullington retired. And
Legend.
Yeah, Chris Lanahan and Marty Gualo and those kids. Patapsco, Rich Bartos was the coach at Patapsco.
Another
he went
one.
on to Towson.
Yeah.
And that when Patapsco would play Dundalk,
Oh.
or Patapsco would play Curly,
Yeah.
I mean, it was the same
Absolutely.
The
mindset.
entire East Side showed up.
I've never seen anything like it. There
Yeah.
was no soccer leagues in Anne Arundel County where
Right.
I grew up. Howard County was just the Columbia
And they
Soccer
were great.
Association.
Yeah.
Kind of changed the game a little bit on that
Exactly.
side of it. Well, not a little bit, a lot.
A lot.
And
Centennial,
and
Wild Lake, those schools.
And finally, you guys remember Daryl G.
Of course.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, he's,
absolutely.
no disrespect. Pete Gringy goes, I tick off all my East Side friends by saying Daryl G was the best player to ever come out of Maryland. What are you talking about?
Daryl G was
He played
unbelievable.
with Pele with the Cosmos.
Yeah, I mean-
but when he was a senior in high school,
Yeah.
he played at Wild Lake. His
Right.
brother Chet played at Oakland Mills. And, I'm sorry, no, they both played at Oakland Mills.
Right.
Anyway, they went over to play Calvert Hall. And Carp, invited
Mr.
him
Karpovich.
over. And Don Shea was coaching the team, and Don had like 1 million state championships
Yeah.
over in Oakland Mills. But Daryl G, man,
Yeah.
was everything as advertised.
Yeah.
And he put, I think one of the Carp boys, I'm not sure which one,
Yeah.
was on the team at that year. It might have been John, but and Timmy had just left. Oh no, Timmy was like a sophomore or something, and
Yeah.
and it was a war, man.
Oakland,
Yeah,
and
oh,
Oakland, Oakland Mills had a
was a
ton of
war.
talent.
Oh,
Oh,
my
my
The
God.
whole
They were
Columbia
huge
explosion
talent.
of
So
soccer.
that changed the game too.
Well, that was a lot of that ethnicity on that side.
Absolutely.
With money. That it was
Absolutely.
finally for the first time you saw. It wasn't just white guys playing soccer.
Here,
You
here.
saw South Americans. You saw Indians.
Well,
you
Daryl
saw,
G was African
Yeah,
American.
African American, and he was. You don't realize this when you're kids and you have no exposure to it. That soccer is massive all
Absolutely,
over the
yeah.
world. To me, soccer ended at Harford Road and Eastern
Right.
Avenue.
Well, it did for a long time.
That's all I knew.
Patterson Park was.
They had a show called Soccer Made in Germany
On
that used-
PBS.
Yes, it
every
used to come on.
Sunday.
Is that right?
Every Sunday
Every
morning.
Sunday
Yeah,
morning.
absolutely.
It was either before or after wrestling.
It was 10:30 every morning.
Right. And
Every morning, 10:30
Here's the
Sunday
only
morning.
name I knew was Beckenbauer. Because he
Hans
was
Beckenbauer.
playing then. So they'd show Bayern Munich for 24 minutes and then 7 other German teams in the last 6. And that's only
was it,
soccer.
right.
I mean, you wanted to watch soccer as a kid. You walked down the park and
Walked to
watched
Patterson
it.
Park.
And you saw
Baltimore Major League, man,
phenomenal
Sunday mornings.
You saw phenomenal soccer. But
Well, I didn't know until Pete educated me. Pete Coringi was, to this day, like you, is one is like
he's the
one
godfather
of my
of Baltimore
he's the
soccer,
godfather.
too.
And he was, I
believe
didn't
that.
know this, but literally, St. Anthony's and St. Ursula's and all these schools
Yeah.
would be, well, one's in Highlandtown. I don't know.
You got Pompeii, you got St.
Pompeii.
Elizabeth's,
They were
all the
like 2 blocks apart.
Yeah.
But they each had like 20 kids on each team.
might as well
and
have
they
been
were all
10 miles
college
apart, too.
All-Americans.
Right. Yeah.
And he was telling me the names of these guys. I'm like, man, Pete, I remember reading about them in the Young World with Pat O'Malley and the News American.
Yes.
Or the Sun Paper when we
Yeah.
were growing up.
Keith,
Unbelievable.
it's a fascinating thing.
Nick
and
Kropfelder and all those guys.
there's only a couple other cities in America that have this sort of the history of soccer. St. Louis was an unbelievable soccer city.
Yeah.
Seattle was an
Yeah,
unbelievable
yeah.
soccer city. And it was weird. There were these little pockets. San Diego had a good
Yeah.
soccer town. Was a good soccer
Well, that
town.
rivalry with the Blast, man.
Second to none.
Unbelievable.
And
I mean,
we could never beat them in the
never-
final.
yeah, could never beat 'em.
Never. We had
well,
every
they had
time.
Jungle.
But no,
Then
but
he
no,
went to the
Jordan
Arrows.
Veal-
Was
no,
then,
Jungle
yeah.
was with the Arrows 80 to 83.
Then he went to San
Then he went to
Diego, right.
Then he went to San Diego. But when we played them in 82, 83, they had V, they had Segota. Alan Mayer was the goalie who actually wore a helmet.
Yeah, I
And it was-
remember that.
It was like, why is this guy wearing a helmet? Like he wore a helmet playing goal. And Kevin Crowe, all those guys.
You
Dart,
think you know a lot
I
of
know,
shit.
that's impressive.
This son of a bitch, he could go forever. It's
Impressive.
incredible.
But I remember the game we played them in game 7, and the Blast was leading like by 2 with like 4 minutes left.
Yeah.
I
They
think
came
it's
back
when
and
we
tied
had
it.
Dominic Mobilio.
Dominic Mobilia.
And Mobilio was.
that.
Well, I can remember in 82-83, we go to San Diego, we lose 7-0 and 8-0. We come back here, we win Game 3, I think like 4 or 5-1. Game 4, we are losing. Then the MISL actually engraved San Diego's name on a trophy after Game 2 before they even flew back to Baltimore for Games 3 and 4. And back then, the USA Network used to broadcast the games.
Yeah.
And Troutwig was actually doing. That's how Troutwig came with us.
Yep.
But Game 4, we were actually a man down, losing with less than a minute left.
It's incredible.
And we pulled a goalie. Peter Berlich scores one of the most.
Scott Manning was in the goal that day.
Yep.
One of the most amazing left-footed shots I've ever
Berlich
seen.
was unbelievable.
And then Fink wins it in overtime.
Yeah.
And we got to go back out to San Diego for Game 5, lose 3-1.
Jimmy Polihan was another great.
Danny Counts.
Oh man,
all those guys. But we just had. Cooper knew where to find the guys that were the good foreign players. But he also knew where to find guys that were good standout. He really hit Philadelphia. Dave McWilliams. Joey Fink. All those guys, he knew where to find those guys. Town. Absolutely.
So, it's funny. I was just sitting here thinking, we're talking about the history of it. I don't know if you guys know this. It's a very famous story, and I'm not making this up. Pele is the only athlete in the history of the world, and I forget what countries were at war. He landed. They stopped fighting while he was in the country. I think it's Argentina. I could be wrong. But when he landed, both countries stopped the war. He played the game, went home. They started fighting again, but they stopped for him. And interestingly enough, when he came to Baltimore...
Yeah, he played at Memorial Stadium.
He played at Memorial Stadium. Absolutely. He played a half with the Cosmos.
And then the other half with his Brazilian team.
And with Santos.
Yes.
A lot of people don't know this. In honor of that, Highlandtown stopped making fun of Hamilton until Pele left.
And then
we went back to their white trash. No, you're white trash.
Well, Italy's playing in the World Cup, I think it's 94, and Pete Caringi's father at that time was owned Tommy's Lounge, the corner of
Eastern and
Conklin. So we do a live shot. It was at Channel 2. I do a live shot. It was a Sunday afternoon.
You're brave.
And we walk. Our photographer walks in. Lamont Williams, African American photographer. Everybody knew him,
right? Of course.
And he walks in, and there must be. And Tommy's Lounge wasn't that big. There's probably 200 people in Tommy's Lounge, and
only held 60.
They're all 50 or over Italian guys. Right? They're like, "Come on in, man! Come on!" And
it's incredible.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Now Italy, I think, lost.
They lost in the final to Brazil in a shootout.
That's
right.
But
absolutely.
What an atmosphere.
Oh,
yeah, absolutely. That was the USA World Cup. That was the first World Cup in the United States.
That's exactly right.
Because I was working at 98 Rock. We're broadcasting live to celebrate the opening because the first game was in Chicago.
Yep.
Halfway through the first game, I get a little notification in my ear. It says, OJ is a fugitive of the law.
I remember that well, and here's why I know.
And then we
I
literally...
was on my honeymoon with my first wife. I had to miss the whole World Cup to spend time ago.
But that's beginning of the end of that marriage.
We missed the first game went off the TV to OJ, and that's how our first night at the World Cup of '94 was spent.
That's insane. Well, Keith, listen, I mean, getting you here was a thrill for us.
Kidding me?
Nobody knows more about these local sports.
We could fill 3 hours.
I want to tell you though, since you and you know me, I'm not a guy to pull punches or whatever.
Absolutely.
I feel like since you've retired, I think Paul Mittermeier's a great guy, and I think he cares about the community and local sports.
Yes, he does.
But there has been somewhat of a loss for that neighborhood. You'd come in, and Keith, here's the thing that I always adored about you, and you and I are very similar in this.
You welcomed me into the family, man. I'll never forget that. I'm serious.
You're the best, dude, because we're the same guy in a way.
We bonded right out of the gate.
We did, man. I mean, we're two white trash guys with no education that got lucky. That's what we are. And both of us are smart enough to know how smart we are.
And we were looking at each other something like, are we really
is this real?
They're paying us for doing this?
I know, they're paying us a lot. And I'll tell you how dumbass I am. I walked away from it. Anyway, Keith, what I wanted to tell you, I'm hoping that Paul or one of these guys pick up the reins like you carried for so long. And I'll be honest, before you, I always thought Vince Bagley was one of the greatest men.
Still is.
Vince, I'm not kidding you. I'm playing at Hamilton Little League. Vince Bagley showed up. He's got a camera with him. It's probably cutaway footage that never aired. But we all knew, oh my gosh, there's Vince Bagley. He interviewed us like it was the World Series.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of intensity. What did the pitcher throw at you? Were you shocked when he stole? It's like he watched the whole game.
And Vince told it like it was.
Oh,
I mean,
the
if
best.
he didn't like something, he would say. And I look, you're talking
Keith
about
was the same
but you're
way,
talking
too.
about Paul. No one can fill his shoes.
No, agreed.
Nobody knows the neighborhood. No, he has no notes, and he just shot
I-
30 guys
You
like
too.
where he went to
You
high
did it
school,
too,
man.
though. You too.
But I mean, come on. Like,
I get it, believe
Patapsco,
me.
Lock Raven.
We
he's
worked together for 10
it's
years, man. I
unbelievable.
get it.
Absolutely.
It's unbelievable.
But I think that is what I'm getting at. And even when I did the morning show, you know, I'd worked with legendary comedians, but I'd rather talk about Billy from the deli.
Yeah.
Because everybody's got a Billy from the deli.
Everybody, but you knew the Orioles, you knew the old Colts, you
Yeah,
knew horse
I'm a
racing,
Baltimore kid.
you knew soccer,
Right.
you knew lacrosse, man.
I'm an Irish Italian kid from Baltimore. I knew every hero and every degenerate
right.
that ever lived. And I'll tell you something, the only difference between a degenerate and a hero is who's telling the goddamn story.
Good point.
Keith, you'll be a hero to me
but
forever.
When Ed,
Ed's a hero.
Oh, he's a hero to me. When I
Me
went
too.
through my drug thing,
Yeah.
and got out of the abyss, so to speak,
Yeah.
he was the first person to call and say, "Hey, come on up." It was at that time down at First Mariner, at
Yeah.
the Penthouse, and I went up and hey, whatever you need,
He's
if I
a
can help
class
you, and
act.
I'll never, ever, ever forget that.
I'll tell you how smart
Never.
Ed is. This is an unofficial webcast. He knows better.
yes.
He knows better than to tie himself
Sanctioned
to
but
it.
not sanctioned.
Right,
Right,
exactly. But Keith, you know, I couldn't. Gianni and I were talking for our first episode who we wanted to talk to, and I said we got to talk to Mills.
that's-
Nobody knows what we're trying to go for here. And in the future, we're going to be talking about high school players, club
Yeah,
players,
yeah.
and a lot about the Blast, obviously, as the
Absolutely.
season's getting ready to kick off. But, I hope any other sports guy that watches this can learn from the simple fact that if you're talking about the community where you're living, you get fans.
Well, you also got to be a part of it.
You got to get in it.
yeah.
You know, for some reason, the people that run our business today think this is more important than engaging with this is
Right.
more important than actually going
Right,
out
absolutely.
and engaging with
Absolutely.
the people
It's
in
incredible.
person. And they are wildly mistaken.
Good for you, man.
Because you and I had the same, and Johnny, obviously you do it too. We have the same mindset. Get out, be part of the community, and know who these people are, not by this.
I'll tell you something,
That's a
Keith,
bunch of
and this
BS.
is humbling to say in a way, and I'm not an arrogant guy. Anybody that really knows me knows I'm not. I'm coaching my son's team, and when people figure out that I'm Mickey, that did the morning show, and I'm standing on the sidelines next to them coaching, they look over every game where a coach has realized that they're like, "You're Mickey?" And I'm like, "Yeah," and they go, "That Mickey?" And I'm like, "Well, it depends. If you like that Mickey, yeah." Man. But the thing that I've always heard, I've heard it about you, I've heard it about many guys, is that once they meet you and they realize we know who we are, we're
you
no
go.
different than them. We just had a microphone for a while.
Absolutely.
That's when those people gravitate
Well, you know what-
Baltimore, I've said this before, Baltimore loves an underdog more than anything
No
in the
question.
world.
And they love a rebound. But you know,
I'm waiting for mine, Keith. You got yours, you son of a bitch. I need mine.
well, you helped me on mine.
Well, I'm
More than-
saying.
more than you'll ever know.
Thank you, pal.
But what Vince did when we were growing up, he made it cool to cover high school.
No doubt.
Remember, we would watch the old black and white TV.
Oh, it was incredible.
And Vince would show Curly Calvert Hall. He
Yeah.
would show.
Who was the kid that went to Curly, the baseball player, went for the Orioles?
Tim Norris.
Tim Norris.
Tim Norris. I can remember as a
was-
kid,
yeah.
Vince Bagley saying, "Here's a kid you might see at Memorial Stadium
He
one
played
day."
with Ripken at Bluefield,
Cal,
I think.
yeah.
Well, I got to tell you, the
They were
first
roommates.
time I heard the name Timmy Norris again, the Orioles were talking about him. I didn't think where to go. I thought Vince Bagley said this 3 years ago.
I coached baseball with him, and when he was running the old Leone's Johnny's
Yes,
team, they
yes.
morphed
Wow,
into
what a
the
legend that
Maryland
team
Orioles
was.
with
Yeah.
Dean Albany, and Dean and Timmy were close. Timmy ran, I was helping him out with Mike Leone, who was Dominic Leone's nephew. But anyway, man, Timmy and Brooks, his son, coached at Curly.
Yeah, they just left. They
They just left for the last 10 years, won a championship a couple years ago.
And you're
but
ta-
Vince made it cool to do that.
It was
for our
unbelievable.
generation.
And for your generation,
Accepted.
you're a little bit older than me, so to me, it was. I didn't even know there was a difference.
Yeah.
I didn't know a time where high school sports
Right.
weren't covered
Right.
because of Vince Bagley, and then right to you, And I remember guys like John Buren and
Chris Thomas,
Randy,
Channel
Chris
11.
Thomas, Randy Blair.
Who was at Channel
Yeah,
2 with Scott before you? Jack was his name?
Jack Dawson.
Jack Dawson.
Jack Dawson was
Yeah.
another. I mean, those guys, and you said it was your
Jack was great.
general manager or somebody that encouraged it.
Arnie Kleiner was the general manager of Channel 2. Al Sanders was the guy that taught me actually going on the air when I was a sports producer.
Wow.
Al
What a
Sanders
legend.
and Jerry Turner.
Oh, no.
Jeez.
And again, Al, no ego.
Yeah.
Legendary guy.
Yep.
But Randy was the person I worked with until he had the heart attack.
Yeah,
and
God,
died.
what a night that was.
And then went to MAR about 7 years ago. But when I walked through the door at MAR and hooked up with Scott Garceau is my four.
He's a class
My Mount
act.
Rushmore of local sports in Baltimore is Chuck Thompson,
Yeah.
Vince Bagley, Jim McKay,
Yeah,
Yes.
Jim McKay.
and Scott.
I'll tell you
They're my
mine.
four.
I got four. Here they are. It's Jim McKay, Scott Garceau, Keith Mills, and Keith Mills.
No, come
That's the
on,
truth.
man.
No, before and
I'm
after.
not even in that
Before you were
class, man.
fucked up and after you were fucked up.
Let me tell you my Chuck Thompson
Yeah, it
story.
is what it is.
Let me tell you my Chuck Thompson story real quick. It's my first day at 98 Rock. It's May of '94.
Yeah.
It's a Friday.
Chuck Thompson.
I
Oh,
go into the
best.
I go into the men's room and there's 3 urinals.
Yeah.
And there's Chuck Thompson, there's an empty one, and there's Rex Barney. And I'm like,
Whoa! And you went in the middle.
do I say hi? Like, what do I do?
You
Like,
wait.
I didn't know
You
what to
can't get in the
do.
middle. You gotta wait.
Oh my god, it was unbelievable. It's like,
incredible.
I mean, Rex Barney was one of the nicest
Yeah.
men. He did a show on Saturdays, I think, for WBAL.
Yeah.
Every once in a while.
Yep.
Just one of the
For those
sweetest,
that don't know,
sweetest
Rex Barney
guys.
was the in-stadium announcer
Yes.
forever, and he tells a great story. He came to my 8th grade pre-graduation thing, like the night before we graduated.
Mm-hmm.
Rex Barney came at St. Francis of Assisi, a sissy if you're an asshole. Yeah. So anyway, so he came, and he told a story, and he says, "I want to tell you a story about a young man that you may never have heard of." And he tells a story about a guy striking out Babe Ruth 3 times in a game. And we're all looking at him like, oh my God. And he goes, and do you know who that guy was? It was him.
Yes.
He told this amazing
about
story.
that?
And at the end, and he goes, and just to let you know, it was a simple guy like me. In
about
fact, it was me.
Wow.
I'm in the 8th grade, and I'm like, oh, if that son of a bitch can be famous, I can do
Absolutely.
anything.
So before we
It was inspiring,
Before
though,
we
truly.
recorded, we were talking about Lamar Jackson, and you were talking about what a great guy he is. If you could name the top 5 Baltimore sports people you've covered, gentlemen wise.
Artie Donovan is
that's
3
it.
of them.
Gentleman wise.
Artie Donovan's 3 of them.
Yeah.
You almost have to leave him off the list.
That's a great question. Ken Singleton.
Oh, what a
Singleton's
gentleman.
still. I love listening to him on the Yankee broadcast.
Singleton's
He's-
incredible.
He's knowledgeable. He was one of my favorite Orioles growing
doubt.
up. Loved him. I loved Ken Singleton.
Absolutely. Kenny was Ken Singleton, Mike Bordick,
Okay.
one of the nicest guys in the
Wow.
history of
And
mankind.
he had a tough job after Rip left.
Yep.
To
Oh,
play.
yeah. No
I mean,
question.
he
Yeah.
had to
Seamlessly.
be.
He did make it seamless.
seamlessly.
Yeah.
And Cal and I kind of grew up together, and
Yeah.
he to this day is a great friend. Rob Burnett for the Ravens.
Oh, yeah. What a great
Quiet
dude.
leader.
Yep.
With all the loud and proud guys on that team, Goose and Ray.
And he
Yeah.
came from Cleveland too, right?
came
from
He was a
Cleveland.
Cleveland player.
Yeah.
He was the guy that all of them deferred to.
Yeah.
Man, and he was one of the great guys of all time. And last would be Wes Unseld,
Yeah, I never got
heard-
to meet Wes, and I've heard people say
Gentle Giant.
that's what I hear.
but don't tick him off.
Well, that's like
I've been
most
to
of
the
those.
story.
I wouldn't want to take Rob Burnett off either.
Here,
man.
here.
Right.
Wes is coaching the Bullets. Mike Gathigan, who you know,
Yeah, sure.
is our sports producer, Channel 2, has done a variety of other things. He was a PR guy for the Bullets. Bullets lost a tough game, and Bernard King was on the team.
Wow.
And Bernard King gave Wes made a snide comment. Wes went up and picked him up. 6'8", King, 6'8", 250 pounds. Picked him up with one hand. He goes, "You got something to say to me now?"
Oh my God.
So don't tick off Wes, but the nicest guy on the planet.
Now, if you had to pick one guy that if when they walked through but if you had to walk through, if they walked through the door and you said, "Man, I don't want to talk to him. I don't want to cover him."
Oh man!
In other words, are you asking biggest
Eric,
asshole
Yes,
you ever
Eric
yes.
Bedard.
Really? We'll leave it at that. Unless you want to elaborate.
So one of the great things of all time. Not only did the Ravens, did the Orioles fleece the Mariners on that trade when we got Adam Jones, Chris Tillman.
That was a great
George
trade.
Sherrill.
Yeah.
We got rid of one of, I think, the
worst human beings ever lived.
He was a
I
nasty
thought
person.
Sidney
Wow.
Ponson was going to be thrown in there.
That's
No,
Sidney.
Sidney's a great guy.
Sidney's a great guy.
Yeah, he had a
He
I
was just an idiot.
He was nuts, man.
He was out of his mind.
He could fit in well with the
Oh, no problem.
We will
Let him drive.
We will have to tell some Baja Beach Club stories of Oriole players.
I'll tell you, let me tell you something. And Keith knows this
Baja
about me.
Beach Club shut down. I think Mr. Angelo's got that shut down.
You know when? I'll tell you when to me, when athletes show their true colors, right? When athletes show their true colors is when they're alone and they just can be themselves.
Yeah.
And anyone that knows me knows that Eddie Murray, to me, is
Walks
the
all
greatest Oriole that ever lived. And I get the Frank Robinsons, the Brookses. To me, Eddie's the greatest. And when he got inducted into the Hall of Fame, my friend made a poster. I think I showed you
Yeah,
the poster.
you did.
It had every stat where Eddie was either first or second in the history of Major League Baseball. It was crazy. My buddy's getting ready to get on the plane. Eddie Murray's in the airport. And he walks over to Eddie, and he's got this poster. He only made 6 of them. I have one. And he said, Eddie, I just wanted to, and he went to give him this, and Eddie thought he was going to ask him to sign something. So Eddie said, hey, look, I don't want to sign anything. And he'd been up all day, just got inducted to the Hall of Fame, whatever. So my friend Jim said, this is for you. And he didn't say a word. And he just handed it to him, and Eddie grabbed it and stood there for a second. Jim walked away, but he could see him. He opened it up, and it was like a beer poster. It wasn't a giant one. And he reads it, and then Eddie stands up, and he looks, and he sees, and he calls him over. And he said, this is the best thing anyone's ever done for me.
Wow, that's very cool.
And he said to my friend Jim, he said, here, I want you to take this. And he signed it for him and didn't personalize it, which makes it very valuable, by the way. Didn't personalize it or anything. And he told my friend Jim, he said, I thought you was one of them guys trying to hop me for an autograph and sell it real quick. And Jim said, no, I'm your biggest fan on the planet. And he said, why me? And Jim told the story of when, I never say the guy's name right, Oil Can Boyd or whatever, struck Eddie out in the first inning in Boston. Remember he used to shoot the guy?
The fake gun, yeah.
Right, the fake gun, he'd shoot him out. So Eddie looked at him, all right, bottom or top of the ninth, the Orioles are trailing by 2, and there's 2 guys on. Eddie hits a home run about 400 miles outside of Fenway, hits home plate, turns around and goes, back to Old Camp Boyd. And Jim said, I was a kid. I saw you do that. You never said a word. You just went in the dugout and walked away. And he said, and I agree. I mean, to me, Eddie was, and when I got to meet Eddie, could not have been nicer. Because my friend blew me up. He's the biggest fan. I'm like, just shut up and say I want to meet him.
And you know
could
what?
Not have been anything more than a gentleman.
And that's one thing about the Blast, like right now. Yeah. We have won so many championships, and so many people in the league can't stand the Blast.
We're the Yankees.
And the Blast don't say a word. They just go. It doesn't matter. They win
the Yankees don't either, do they?
And
you're a Yankee fan.
I'm a Yankee fan.
Straighten this shit out later in the season.
But they go to Mexico 3 times. They win, and they piss everybody off.
Of course.
They don't. But they just do their Danny and David Bascom. They go out. They play the game. They don't say anything. They win. They come home.
Listen,
and it's that's
Gianni, you know this. Keith, you know this. True great champions, their words are in the game. Michael Jordan could jaw with it, the best of them. Yeah. But he's also dropping threes with 2 seconds left to win. And that's
the Patriots are the same way.
Absolutely.
Everybody hates the Patriots because of
I love them. I love the Patriots. You know what? My son said to me this year, I hope Tom Brady doesn't win another Super Bowl. I said, I hope he wins 8 more. And he looks at me and goes, why would you want that? I said, because all your uncles are assholes and they get pissed off for no reason that the guy's the greatest quarterback in NFL history, and you're going to hate him because he wins.
If Brady played here, if Ben played here, Baltimore would love them. Love them.
Are you kidding me?
Absolutely.
I would take any of those
Baltimore
guys.
fans would find a way to find. We know Brady can't. Brady doesn't throw the
I hate the way he wears his helmet.
40-yard out on the opposite hash well enough. Okay, you're right.
Keith,
you're right.
I got to tell you this because I haven't been on the air with you since I came up with it. Another radio station, 105.7, has a very famous caller. I don't know if you know Parkville Bob.
Oh, absolutely.
So, but I don't know if you know this. Everything Parkville Bob says goes back to Johnny Unitas. I don't care what he's talking about. They could be talking about soccer, and Parkville Bob would come on. He would say, "You know, a lot of people don't know this, but back in '63." England didn't qualify. They didn't think they were going to qualify for the World Cup, and they went out and signed a guy who took them all the way to the World Cup. I don't know if you know, that man went by the name of Mr. Gianni. So whenever I do a show, I'm like,
John Constantine.
yeah, born May, whatever,
Oh, yeah.
birthday. Well, I told the story of the birth of Christ, and I said a lot of people don't know this, but there was a fourth wise man there, never mentioned in the Bible, really responsible for everything Jesus did. If you don't know who that was, that man went by the name of Mr. Gianni. But you're so right about Baltimore fans, and it kills me. I almost threw Facebook away 40 times.
Oh, yeah.
Last year with Flacco, the way they just, why would he throw a 3 and, you're 3rd down and 8 and you're running this and you should be doing, I'm like, you're eating a Frito pie, you fat pig. Sitting on your
This
couch.
guy, when the first 2 weeks I was at 98, and he said, there's some guy called up and he goes, man, I complaining about something. And he goes, get your fat ass off the couch and get out and walk a lap around the neighborhood, then call me back. I couldn't talk for 2 hours.
Well, Keith, listen.
All right, guys.
We were peers for a long time. I got to tell you, man, you're a hero. I think you're the best, dude. You're the
hardly.
best that did it in the business.
Love you, brother.
Thank you for doing
And
this
man,
for us.
Being here, man.
Great
This is
job.
awesome.
Your knowledge.
You two
second to
together,
none.
it's ridiculous.
Woo, I'm impressed.
We literally could sit here all
could.
all day.
Yeah.
We could.
Well, we can't. We're out of time. Thanks, everybody.